Hi, this is Shotgun Tom Kelly, and now that I have your attention, you wanted to be close to him in the dugout during his impressive 15-year Major League career because he was always watching, listening, and looking for an edge. Now, Kurt Bavacqua brings that edge to Dirty Kurt's Dugout, where you can listen, watch, and be a part of the most honest, informative baseball show available today. Now, here's Kurt.
Hey everyone, how are you? I got to ask you, what do you think of the intro? I know it's been going on now for quite a while, but I've never really asked our listeners. Everybody knows that they can come in and ask questions and make comments at any given time, and we can see them. And if they're good enough, they'll go across the screen. Welcome to Dirty Kurt's Dugout. Producer Joe and I are here. I'm Kurt Bavacqua. And I want to send a big thank you out there to Hacienda Casablanca out in El Cajon. Best Mexican food restaurant I've ever eaten at. Cindy and Tony will treat you well, especially if you mention Joe's name. I don't know about mine, but I know Joe's big out in those parts. 700 North Johnson out in El Cajon, California. And, of course, our good friend Tom Drake at Balboa Chevron, I should say, and your neighboring Chevron dealers from Lacima Oil, who are nice enough to give us a $100 gift card for our listeners and viewers. So I want to make sure I have my comments. There's Terrence. You can always rely on Terrence. He knows Shotgun. Yeah. Oh, you know what, Terrence? I'm glad you said that because I know you did a bit on Facebook with Shotgun hollering out at me one day. But we can have Shotgun redo that intro because Joe and I know him well. I've known Shotgun for a number of years now, and I know producer Joe knows him also. And all I have to do is throw out Terrence's name, and bang, you get what you want. Before we start the show today, I want to say, well, it's going to be part of the show. I want to say rest in peace to a man who I consider one of the nicest men I've ever met in my life, and that's Mr. Ralph Terry. Ralph Terry pitched for the New York Yankees and also a couple of other teams from 1956 to 1967. He's probably best known not only for winning the Most Valuable Player Award in the 1962 World Series when the Yankees beat the San Francisco Giants, that of the game that the last out was off the bat of Willie McCovey. I don't know why I remember this so well, but I do. Naturally, that's all you had to do was watch the World Series between the American League and the National League back then. There were no playoffs. If you won the American League, you got in the World Series. If you won the National League, you got in the World Series. Those two teams would play against one another. Willie McCovey's line drive almost took Bobby Richardson, the Yankee second baseman, into right field. And Ralph Terry was on the mound. A 1-0 game. Ralph Terry had some kind of year in 1962. And he also gave up Bill Mazeroski's home run in 1960. Yep, that was Ralph Terry on the mound when you see Bill Mazeroski rounding the bases. Ralph and I became friends when we both played on the Celebrity Players Tour, which was a golf tour that went on for a number of years, raised millions and millions of dollars for charities around the United States and in foreign countries, Puerto Rico for one and Jamaica for another. And Ralph taught me how to play the golf ball in the wind because he was from Texas. He lived in Kansas when he died, but he was teaching me on the driving range one day how to knock a golf ball down. And you know what he told me while he was doing that? He said, you need to take this to heart because I learned this from a guy that's a pretty good golfer. And I said, well, who's that, Ralph? And he said, Sam Snead. That was good enough for me. That was good enough for me. So rest in peace, Ralph Terry. My old roommate, Dick Drego, says the same thing. And Gil, you're right. What a way to start the season. Rest in peace, Ralph. We love you, buddy. Besides the rule changes that are going on and will go on in 2023, of course, we talked about the shift and bigger bases, but the Atlantic League or Major League Baseball just announced that the independent Atlantic League, which is basically the petri dish for anything that Major League Baseball wants to do, they've announced that along with Freddie Freeman being pursued by the San Diego Padres, I was going to get to that in a minute because I really can't figure it out. Unless they know that they're going to get rid of Eric Hosmer. But getting back to the Atlantic League for a minute, they announced that one of the changes they're going to make this year is that a team will lose the DH when the starting pitcher is removed before he completes 5 innings. So if a pitcher naturally pitches into the 6th inning, then whether he's removed from that point on or not, the team will retain the DH. Now, here's a good one. They also announced that you can steal first. I know you're all scratching your head, and I was too until I read on. If a catcher does not catch the pitch ball in the air, the batter's eligible to try to advance to first base. So in other words, if the ball bounces in the dirt and goes off of the catcher's equipment all the way to the backstop and the count is 1-1, you're off. You're running to first. 9 times out of 10, or even higher than that, you're going to make it, especially if the ball bounces a long way from the catcher. And guess what? They're going to award the hitter a base hit. I don't know what they're trying to do with making stats look better nowadays, but they're with the banning of the shift and the possible implementation of this, it's certainly going to increase batting average numbers. Yeah, I said the same thing, Gil. Well, anyhow, whatever our personal opinions are on that, and I see that people out there don't really like it very much. It's something that's going to happen, and it's going to happen in the Independent League, Atlantic League, which is kind of the minor leagues, part of the minor leagues for Major League Baseball. The independent leagues are leagues that players can go to that are unsigned, and they're trying to continue to make a name for themselves and get into a position where a major league team will sign them to a minor league contract, most likely, and they will go to that particular minor league franchise and try to work their way up into the system. Kyle Linney said, we played that rule in the backyard when I was 5 or 6. Yeah. Yep. And now they're playing it in the Atlantic League now with the openness of something that was brought in this last collective bargaining agreement, that the rules can be changed by the commissioner's office by letting the players union know, and it only takes 45 days. In my view, that's just an open invitation for the commissioner of baseball to do things like this. Batter stealing first. Let me tell you all the things that are going on in the game. Besides rule changes, I'm talking about signings and trades and dumping. There's some serious dumping going on, especially by the Cincinnati Reds. But the A's aren't too far behind. Chris Bassett went from the A's to the Mets. Speaking of the Mets, boy Cohen is loading them up over there. They're going to be a force in the National League East and might be a front runner going into the season. With the addition of Scherzer and Starling Marte and Eduardo Escobar, they've got a heck of a club. It was announced today that Matt Chapman got traded from the A's to Toronto. You know, that was big news. I mean, Matt Chapman has been a great defensive third baseman and is a good all-around player. But this guy hit 210 last year with 200 strikeouts. I think putting him in the lineup with all of those sluggers up there in Toronto is going to do nothing but help him. But let's keep Cord open until he goes up there and puts up some 260, 70, 80 numbers with 30 home runs or so, which he definitely has the ability to do. You guys are taking all my spotlights away with this must be Joe. Due to trades and releases with the Reds, Ken Griffey Jr. is about to be the current highest paid Red. I'll explain that in a second. I don't think he's going to be the highest paid, but if they keep dumping salaries, he might. So Chapman goes to Toronto from the A's. Matt Olson, we've probably heard about it by now. If you haven't, you need to just know when we go on and listen. Go on to YouTube and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything to the show. And if you don't have time to watch the next 15 minutes here today, and we're going to end it about then, you can go back and watch it anytime you want. Everybody understands YouTube. Even I do. So if I do, I know you do. Matt also goes to the Braves. And I tell you what, if this doesn't tick off the Freddie Freeman camp, I don't know what does. Because Freddie Freeman's still out there as a free agent. Everybody's going, what's up? There's speculation that the Padres are talking to him. But we'll get to Freddie Freeman in a minute. But the Braves turn around after trading for Matt Olson and signed him for more money than they were offering Freddie Freeman. Now, agreed. Matt Olson is 4 years younger than Freddie is. But Freddie Freeman was face of your franchise for a number of years. I mean, is there no loyalty there? I guess the answer to that is pretty obvious. So Rizzo resigns with the Yankees for 2 years and $16 million. He's a steal. With that short porch in right field for the Yankees, Anthony Rizzo's a steal. Eddie Rosario goes back to the Braves, 2 years, $18 million. He was the National League Championship Series MVP last year. Yeah, he played some good baseball. And probably one of the top utility players in the game, Chris Taylor, up in LA, signs with the Dodgers. Utility player. Granted, high caliber utility player. 4 years, $60 million. Kershaw resigns with the Dodgers, 1 year for $17 million. Going to finish his career out there. Suzuki signs with the Chicago Cubs. The player that I heard reports yesterday that he's signing with the San Diego Padres. So that's why I don't listen to anything on social media, even if it's from a reliable source. Didn't they tell us last year that Max Scherzer was coming here right before he went to the Dodgers before the trading deadline? I know. We got comments and people coming in, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. Don't forget to go to YouTube and like us or subscribe, I mean. Schwarber signs with the Phillies, 4 years for just shy of $80 million. So $20 million a year for Kyle Schwarber. Andrew McCutchen signed with the Brewers. Terms are unknown at this time. And Zach Greinke, the free agent, is going back to the team that he started with, the Kansas City Royals. Speaking of free agent, we've got Freddie Freeman. We've got Trevor Story. We've got Carlos Correa. And a name that I don't know. I mean, this kid was talk of baseball a few years ago. And I don't know what happened. Chris Bryant, I'm talking about. I think he would be a perfect fit here in San Diego. Think about that, Padre fans. Chris Bryant in San Diego as a left fielder, can spell Machado at third. I'm going to get to injuries in a minute on why he's going to be needed, especially at the beginning of the year or the first few months of the year. Because injuries have started, and we'll get to them in a minute. But going back real quick to all of the goings on, I mean, there's so much stuff going on that in any one given minute, your favorite player might be gone. Because, I mean, to be fair, both sides are showing you there's no loyalty. Do you think there's more loyalty on the players' side or ownership side in baseball? I want to see some opinions on that. Because I have my opinion on it, but I want to see how you guys feel about that. And I mentioned free agents, and one guy that I left out was Nick Castellanos. Um, he has virtually told the Reds that he was going to file for free agency and leave the ball club. He has not been signed yet. This guy put up some serious numbers last year. Was it enough for a club to offer him the kind of money that he's probably looking for? I'm not sure. And I'm wondering if that's the reason that we haven't seen that he hasn't signed yet. But the ownership of the Cincinnati Reds, that storied franchise, is not making Reds fans very happy, because they've disposed of Sonny Gray, Winkler, Jesse Winkler, Suarez, the catcher, third baseman Barnhart. They lost Wade Miley, the waivers, purposely to save $10 million. Today, they traded Amir Garrett to the Royals for a player and money. So the Reds are trading players and getting cash back. You know, I remember this happening in the 70s, where Charlie Finley tried to sell a couple of players to primarily the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. And the commissioner stepped in and disallowed it after these players were in uniform for the team they got sold to for a couple of days. It was an interesting scenario. I don't think they ever performed for these other teams, but they were literally there for a couple of days. There are pictures of these guys, Vida Blue and Joe Rudy, Raleigh Fingers. Commissioner steps in, disallows it. But yet we see this stuff going on with the Cincinnati Ball Club, where the sixth highest paid player on the Reds right now is a guy that hasn't played a game for 12 years. Deferred money. But we're talking about 3.9 million. We're not talking about 10 or 15 million. There you go. Breaking news. Chris Bryant, per John Heyman. Well, you know what? I don't trust this guy either. But it makes sense. That he might go to the Rockies. It's a team that not only could use his bat in the lineup, but is not afraid to throw some money around. We're getting some responses on the team's loyalty versus players' loyalty. I certainly don't think the owners of the big city clubs and large payroll care about the small market teams at all. I believe the players are more loyal to each other. Well, what I meant, John, was, and I agree with you to a degree. What I was talking about was let's take the Freddie Freeman situation. He's played his entire career, was originally drafted by the Atlanta Braves, and all of a sudden, he becomes a free agent, which is what we all, as players, want to try to achieve, to find out how much we're worth in a free, open market. Because that's how long it takes in order to find this information out. You know, I've told this story before right here on this show. Gil, I don't know who 7 years, 187 million is. So is that Chris Bryant? Must be. We were talking about Chris Bryant. So 7 years, 187 million. Well, good for him. So I started to say that I've told you this on this show before, but when I originally signed, my first professional contract, and again, it's as it was throughout my career, it was interrupted by bigger news coming out. All right, so we got 187, we got 182 by Mike Feinstein. So it's 180 million. 7 years, 180 million, going to Denver and playing in Mile High. Going back to me and anybody else for that matter, I'm using myself as an example. When I signed with Cincinnati Reds, I was so excited, I didn't really think about the fine print in the contract or even what the situation was. Didn't care. Nothing I could do about it anyway. But I was binded to that team for the rest of my life. At least the rest of my baseball life. If I wanted to play professional baseball, the only team that I was eligible to play for was Cincinnati Reds until they released me or traded me. And then naturally, I'm going to play for the team that I was traded to. But there was no free enterprise until Marvin Miller came around and free agency was created. Dick Drago said, good things for us players. The owners didn't listen to Finley when he wanted all players to be eligible for free agency when we negotiated a new agreement. I tell you what, Charlie Finley was a pretty smart guy. And he did a lot for the game of baseball that he probably doesn't get enough credit for. I love the way I go in and out of things on this show, and I hope you guys can follow me. Jim, I have no idea how many guys know who Curt Flood is. I think there's players in the clubhouse today that don't know who Willie Mays was or is. So they certainly don't know who Curt Flood was. So I started to mention to you before one of those banners came across that Ken Griffey Jr. is still being paid by the Reds. And because of what the Reds have done since the beginning of the winter, as well as after the lockout is over, they've dumped salaries. And we'll have that total for you soon when everything's over. But Griffey's the sixth highest paid player on the Reds team. And he hasn't played a game for 12 years. That's crazy. It is something Tony Gwynn never did. And Tony Gwynn was loyal. He's one of those guys I was speaking about. It can probably be argued as to what side is more loyal, the ownership side to the players or the players' side to the owners. But let's talk about injuries. Chris Sale's down with a rib cage injury. Adley Rutschman, the number one overall pick of the Phillies in 2019, and the number one MLB.com overall prospect is out with a right tricep injury. Acuna's out with a knee injury. Charlie Morton's out with a lower leg injury. Soroka, Achilles, and that's just the Braves. Every team has injuries. Naturally, a lot of them are spring training type of injuries. But we're going to be seeing these injuries throughout the course of the year because of the lockout, because of the hustle bustle of getting back to the game after the lockout's over. Before I close with OCC, again, please go out and patronize Hacienda Casablanca and El Cajon. Cindy and Tony, say hi to them for Joe and I, producer Joe. And also, Balboa Chevron, if you go by there, buy your gas there. It's no different than going down the street and buying it. And you can support one of our sponsors, which I'd appreciate. I went on live on Sunday, and I also posted on social media. And in case you missed it, OCC, Orange Coast College. The head coach there, John Antebelli, for 27 years, his wife and daughter, along with Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and 4 others, died in a helicopter crash on January 26, 2020. Well, they honored John with the retiring of his number, which was 14, and also the renaming of Pirates Park to John Antebelli Field up in Costa Mesa. Orange Coast College is a great baseball school. Well, there was a game there on Sunday after they did all the pregame ceremonies that the Orange Coast Pirates won 14-3. And I took a picture before the game of the players lining the field during the national anthem in the pregame ceremonies, of which every player on both teams was wearing number 14. We've seen that around Major League Baseball with Roberto Clemente's number and also Jackie Robinson's number. Well, they did that with Coach Alto on Saturday. 14 will never be seen or never worn by an Orange Coast Pirate again, and it'll be up on the wall. The line score to this game, embrace yourself for this, because stuff like this just doesn't happen. The Orange Coast Pirates scored 14 runs. They got 14 hits, and they left 14 men on base on John Altobelli Day. I got shivers right now because stuff like that just doesn't happen. Keep watching out for Dirty Kurt's Dugout, for me on Facebook Live sessions, because Joe and I are going to be coming to you a couple of times a week here pretty quick, and I will announce to you when that's going to be. And don't forget, make notes of these shows, because Tom Drake at Lacima Oil, make sure that I have a $100 gas card every week. I take that back, every month, to give away to one of our lucky listeners. And all you have to do is listen, know the answer to the question that Joe and I come up with, mostly producer Joe, and you got $100. You'll get you about a quarter of a tank. Out here in California, it will. Our first winner was in Detroit. So it's a nationwide thing. We're not going to just give it away to California people. They've got just as much chance as anybody else. So I want to thank everyone for listening, everyone for tuning in. We will see you on the next show. So please go to our Facebook channel, subscribe, and look for notifications. We will talk to you next time. There's Coach Alto. Rest in peace, buddy. Talk to you soon. Bye.